Hey everyone, it's Dave Barnett from davidcbarnett.com, the blog site, YouTube channel, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play podcast, where we talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses. And today, I've got Vikram Rajan with me, and Vikram is one of the owners and founders of PhoneBlogger.net. We're going to be talking about content marketing and keeping top of mind amongst the people who are most likely to refer you. And so we're largely talking about professional businesses like accountants, lawyers, financial planners, business consultants, etc. But I think quite a bit of what's going to be in this conversation is applicable to people who are doing some kind of content marketing or trying to remain relevant within the view of an audience in general. Vic, would you say that that's true?
Yeah, exactly. If there's ever an opportunity where being top of mind and staying top of mind benefits you, then we'll definitely cover the bases.
So what was interesting to me about this topic, of course, is content marketing is essentially what I do because for my business as a consultant, and I release a video every week and I talk about different things, mostly questions that people submit. And it makes it relevant because now there's a bunch of stuff out there that people can find when they're searching. And then when they find me, they can check me out without actually having to meet me by looking at a bunch of my stuff, right? So, but I have experienced, having individuals in my life, that are in related industries who send me people, right? Sure. And this is the referability thing. Sure. And so why don't we start out by talking a little bit about how you got started with PhoneBlogger and what the problem was that you realized other people, would also have, and how you wanted to address it.
Sure. So I started off as a marketing consultant, very, very much for the same population, professional services, mainly boutique lawyers and CPA firms, and helped them develop marketing action plans. And what we discovered very quickly, and we saw a rhythm and a pattern, was that most of our clients were getting their more lucrative business through word-of-mouth referrals from these allied professionals, centers of influence, etc. Back then, this was about 8-9 years ago, so social media wasn't like such a big deal. Search engine optimization was definitely there, but it was still maybe not the amount of traffic as today, certainly. And even still today, I would say for most of our clients, their more lucrative clients tend to come more sustainably through their word-of-mouth referral relationships as opposed to those like urban legends, those like white elephants that people get with SEO. And it happens, I'm sure, but for our clients, it's more sustainable. However, they were essentially missing out on all of those relationships because they were out of sight, out of mind, and thus out of a lot of those referrals. And so we knew one of the ways to stay top of mind was to send out an email newsletter. And even back then, this was like 2009, 2010. Even then, email newsletters was kind of passe. It was kind of like, all right, is that what we're going to do? I'm like, look, right now, this is the dominant way that people are communicating and staying top of mind electronically using the internet. And as social media creeped up to this day, more people check more email more times a day, more than any other social media combined. And of course, that's definitely for older generations, older as in 35 plus. But even the mature millennial crowd, as they get into the professional workplace, are having their Gmail open or having their mail app open, because that is definitely the place that they're getting information from in the workplace, professionally, and even personally as they have more mature, complex lives. So we knew email was the answer. The problem for our clients was that they didn't have the time to sit down and write articles. They knew they had to do this.
You don't want to send an email that just says, hey, don't forget me.
Yeah, well, the irony is that sometimes you do, right? I mean, those are essentially what holiday cards are, or birthday cards.
Yeah.
So it actually ironically does happen where it's like, hey, don't forget me, which is essentially Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. So yes, sure, and I'm not a huge fan of that because that's all it is. You're not adding value to the other. Maybe if you wish someone a happy birthday, sure, you're adding some amount of value, but just to clutter someone's inbox with a season's greetings is kind of annoying. But so you need content. And our clients were focused rightfully on their own clients, their own work, and marketing would fall by the wayside. And I said, look, having them sit down and write an article would take weeks, and getting them to edit it would take weeks. And we said, well, what if we just brainstormed article ideas with our clients over the phone, typed up what they said, make sure it's within their attorney advertising and other compliance obligations rules. We know what they need to say or not say. We'll get their approval. And once they approve it, we can then log on to their website for them and add it as a blog post and format that blog article for search engines and make it eye-catchy, add a copyright-approved image, do all the stuff that's supposed to be done. We can then take that article and promote it through their social media channels.
Some people out there will attempt to do something like they'll maybe purchase sort of generic articles and they'll try to edit them, make them personal, or they'll just hire someone and say, I want you to write blogs for my blog post, for my blogs. But what you're doing is you're basically helping people kind of outsource it, but there's still that actual content from the person because you do an interview with them and then the interviewer goes and then writes those things.
Correct. Yeah, we use our clients' words. So our client articles sound like our clients. They are the author. They're not literally dictating it because that can be very boring, but it's more of a conversation. Right. But all of our clients are subject matter experts. They're thought leaders. They want to be known for their expertise and their excellence. So while sometimes it's definitely cheaper to just hire a ghostwriter or subscribe to a library, and look, when push comes to shove, when it comes to marketing, something is better than nothing. So if that's all they can afford, that's, at least they're doing something which is probably more than 80-90% of their competitors. So they're going to have a leg up. However, but for that kind of subset that really want to make a name for themselves, and maybe they want to be invited to speak, maybe they want to write a book one day, or they know they are the subject matter expert better than these knowledge libraries, that they're more attuned to their client, that they can speak better to that specific demographic market, not just answer a question the way a dictionary would, but really be a thought leader. And for those folks, their personal brand, their reputation, their influence in the marketplace is important to them, and the way other people perceive them is important because they don't want to be seen as cheap or just recycling generic content. They want others to perceive them as a subject matter expert. They may not always be allowed to be called expert. That's kind of a sticking point.
Right.
But they are thought leaders and they can be perceived that way. And we do that through exactly that process, that phone blogging. It's kind of like what you said, David. It's preserving their voice. Literally, we're recording it, and then figuratively, their personal brand comes out.
So here's a little snippet. We had a conversation before I hit record, and the topic of the Yellow Pages came up, but I'm not sure if you know, I had a 7-year career with the Yellow Pages.
I did not know that.
Oh, okay, good. So,
and I like how I was breaking down their business model to you.
one of the worst things I hated dealing with was when people said, "Oh, all of our clients come from word of mouth," right? And the fact of the matter is that yes, word of mouth is a critically important thing. But what we actually had statistics and we had study evidence that showed people can pass the name of your firm along, and then the person who receives that name would then open the Yellow Pages to get the phone number.
Right? It happens now.
Because the information wasn't complete. Correct. And it the biggest piece of information, the biggest, sort of holy grail piece of data that we had was we actually had a dentist who did a call measurement study, which means he ran an ad in the Yellow Pages and he changed the phone number in the ad so that every time somebody called that number, it would forward to him, but it was counted by a computer.
Okay.
And the people, the call display data was also recorded. So we could say, oh, here was a photocopier salesman, but here's, one of your real customers. They looked in the phone book.
Right.
He got that list and he said, oh, this is crazy. This data must be incorrect because this shows my daughter opened the Yellow Pages to call my office. And we said, yeah, your daughter doesn't even know your work number. She's opening the Yellow Pages to find your phone number. So when you were getting into marketing 9 years ago and people were saying, well, my biggest clients come from word of mouth, right. Was that being used as an objection for why they didn't need to work on marketing? Or were they open to trying to improve that?
Yeah, I think it was more that they were open to improving that. I think they realized that, it's just, that I use that cliche a lot, out of sight, out of mind, because I think it resonated. They knew that, okay, we were getting, one referral from these 5 people each. Well, I would say, great. Well, what amount of effort would it take to get 2 referrals from those 5 people? Let's focus on that because I've just doubled your referrals. Yeah. So it's not going to, these aren't companies or firms that are getting hundreds of calls a day. So it was a very, and this is kind of pre-phone blogger, I would do that. And it was kind of like old school referral growth hacking before that was a phrase, something I should bring back. And it was like basics. It was the simple stuff. And you know, it's so we all know, right? You know, keep it simple and go back to the basics. All those cliches are true. Yet the growing trend of keeping top of mind, which was email and then slowly LinkedIn, et cetera, they knew they had to do it. You know, thought leadership, writing articles, doing presentations, it's old school. It's not something that LinkedIn invented. It's been there for decades, hundreds, if not years, right? It's like lawyers were the original orators. So they know about content marketing or education market or edutainment, and all those phrases were there. It's just now dusting it off and calling it a blog instead of a FAQ page or a seminar page.
So I think what was key about what you just said, talking about the 5 people who each referred a client last year, is that one of the things that I run into when I'm talking to people about this is they'll say, well, I don't have a list or an audience that's a substantial number of people. Right. And it doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be. Yeah. I mean, look, another cliche that can be a little tired is that it's quality, not quantity. And while the cliche may be tired, I mean, if you just look at the math, we all know, you know, we know our clients, and we have them somewhere, at least our billing software, and we know to some degree who referred them. And if not literally, we can make it up and like not, you know, kind of from memory, dot it out. And it's a great exercise to do and to keep track of. And you just kind of shake it out, and you'll start to see these are my inner circle of clients that bring me new business. We're loyal. They rave about us. This is my inner circles when it comes to referral relationships. These are the people that I would love to have as referral relationships, but for whatever reason, haven't unlocked it. And if we could just, you know, stay focused on that population, we don't need millions of YouTube viewers. We don't necessarily need millions of Twitter followers or tens of thousands of LinkedIn connections. I mean, the quantity can actually lead to clutter. And then that, you know, we have a different solution for that. But it's, I think, way more important to go deep with those relationships. And look, the reason we meet new people is to kind of see if they would eventually kind of filter into that inner circle. And, you know, they're judging us the same. So we have to be careful of being too judgy, but we have to be judicious with our time. And so I think in the world of internet marketing, we're not a spray and pray type firm, and that's not our philosophy. That it is a very focused effort. You know, not that blogs, LinkedIn posts, and email newsletters is a cure-all to everything, but it's the way that we can be efficient with our time when we don't see people face to face.
Yeah, and a lot more cost effective than you know, a general advertising.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, and you know, to your earlier point of word of mouth and the way Yellow Pages. I mean, as we now know, Google has kind of become the de facto Yellow Pages, and it still happens. You know, between incomplete information because they gave a phone number and I prefer an email, or vice versa. I want rather just call them instead of emailing. So that's incomplete information. But then it's just kind of checking this guy out and kind of, is he or she legit? And that's really where content marketing, kind of the basics of a copyright symbol on the bottom of a website, make sure it's automatic, so it turns to 2019 in a couple of weeks. So it makes sure it at least says 2018 now. If it just says 2016, it's kind of like, are they in business? So that's like a silly basic. But then the frequency of content, of course, leads to SEO results, but it also shows that you're with it and that you're kind of on top of your game. And, you know, people try to trick it by not including the date on a blog post, et cetera. But it's like, look, you can very easily tell things are changing so much in so many different practice areas that, you know, you can easily realize that this is a couple of years old. A couple of months is a different issue.
Well, you know, it's interesting. It's interesting that you talk about, you know, somebody checking you out, because I've had on more than one occasion, I've had somebody approach me, send me an email because they wanted my help to work on a project on a consulting basis. And they've said things to me like they were actually referred to someone else. Mm-hmm. But when they went looking for that person, they found this vacuum online. They didn't find anything. They didn't find articles. They didn't find content. They didn't find even the person had attended a seminar or anything. They just found nothing. And then when they went poking around on their own, they quickly stumbled across something I had done. And felt more confident about approaching me than the person they were actually originally referred to. And I find that very interesting, because it's people now are starting to be suspicious of firms, companies, advisors, individuals, etc., that seem invisible online.
Right, right. It's kind of like, if you're so good, why are you hiding?
Yeah.
And I think we're all that way. So it's a great point, because it's almost like the other end of the spectrum. It's not only that you do it to top of mind, but you also do it to make sure that you're filling a vacuum that's there, because it's we're managing how people find us, and how people not only find us logistically, but also kind of that connection. Like, can they really see that you're the right professional for them, the right advisor, the right consultant, lawyer, accountant? Can they kind of understand that this is the person that I want? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a nice guy, because sometimes they want a shark, but they know either way that you're competent and you've got the character that meets what they're looking for.
So when you started off back in like 8 years ago, 2010, you were working with these people saying, we need to have this fresh content. At what point did you realize that you weren't going to be able to get them to write stuff on their own, that you had to draw it out?
Yeah, it was 2009. It must have been like around this time, maybe a little earlier, 2009. And that's when we started thinking of this concept of, let's just hop on the phone. And in the beginning, we didn't charge them any extra. It was just like, we just got to get this done. Let's interview them over the phone. We'll type up what they say, get their
After
approval.
you had waited for 5 or 6 weeks for them to send something in, and they never did.
Yeah, it would. And then talk about that. So then, originally, it was, we'll do the interview, we'll type up the article, we'll now email it back to you and say, let us know when you've approved this article. I think I hear me say it now, and my heart sinks. Like, if I saw one of my staff write that, I would have been like, what? No, like, not at all. Like that, we may as well just have not sent the email, and save them some heartache of guilt, knowing that they're never going to do this. So it was just ridiculous. They were like, it's just 5 minutes. And it was literally, a blog article should be read within 5 minutes. So to say that it's literally, you could read it within 5 minutes was not an exaggeration. That was the intent. So finally, we ended up going with a standing appointment. Of going, we'll email you the article Tuesday before our Wednesday appointment, so you have a time to read it and review it. 9 times out of 10, they have not opened it at all. No big deal. Let's just read it together. And that was definitely a big domino piece, because it was like, look, if we could just sit on the phone and essentially watch them read it for 5 minutes, A, we know it got done. Great. B, if they have any changes, we can now kind of see why and what's their thinking pattern, because then we can incorporate that for next time, and get it even better, to the point where they read it, they love it. It's like rubber stamp, done. And when it gets to that point, it's great. Everyone's happy. It's very efficient. Literally, it's a 5-minute call. And sometimes there's small talk, just because people feel the telephone conversation needs to be longer, because it was so efficient. So they will end up having small talk for 5 minutes, just to feel as if this wasn't a flu shot. So it was really easy.
And I mean, I've talked with people I know personally about doing more stuff online, and one of the things that does come up is compliance with regulatory rules. Sure. Like, you can't say this, you must say this, you must indicate this thing, maybe a license number for a mortgage broker, or something like that.
Footnotes have to be, or citations.
And so you're cognizant, when you're working on these, of the rules that this person has, and it's like a second set of eyes to make sure that they're not breaking one of these things. Correct.
Yeah. Part of the proofing aspect is having, for us to be aware, especially of attorney advertising rules, and what the AICPA and State Society say, what accountants are allowed to say, really certified public accountants. But then there are chartered financial consultants. There's the certified financial planners. Then the SEC regulated, kind of the Series 7 folks, RIAs, which are registered investment advisors. Every one of them has some type of nuance. Sometimes they have literally a process where they need to send the article to a compliance officer, or someone on legal, or some type of compliance professional. And while annoying, we build that into the process, where we know if that's going to be a black box that takes a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks to get approved. Well, okay, let's do a whole bunch of articles, feed it into the black box, we'll get it out. Now we have 3 approved. That buys us time. So if you can imagine, now we can go into that consistent drip so much of marketing, branding, et cetera, has to do with consistency. And frequency is kind of built into that, but it's whatever frequency, be consistent. But if it's going to be once a month or twice a month, we want that. But how do we deal with the black box? And that's a nice, simple, very obvious hack that really isn't getting around any loophole. There's no loophole there. It's just building in the time that we know is going to happen. Just simple planning. And then out the other end, and as we develop a relationship, typically we can now, as much as we could foresee 80-90% of what a compliance officer is looking for, there's always going to be some nuance that maybe is personality driven or what have you. It's subjective. It's hard for us to really catch, but we can start documenting it. And within 2-3 articles, we got the pattern. So we make it efficient for our clients. I mean, it's not harrowing at all for our clients. I think we're kind of used to it. So it's kind of what we do. Mm-hmm. And it's really kind of get on the phone, talk about your article, you're done. And everything else is really just kind of approving the process so that nothing goes out under our clients' names without their approval, because it is their reputation, let alone their license.
And the consistency thing, I think, can't be understated. I mean, things really changed for me 4 years ago when I decided to commit to a new YouTube video every week.
Yeah.
And releasing on Friday.
Yeah.
And people then start to know to look for it. But I believe it has an impact too on things like the YouTube algorithm, search algorithm. Like when they see an account or a channel, excuse me, that is being consistent in the release of new material, I think it gives the channel greater authority. So when new things come out, it's actually viewed as more valuable by those gremlins inside the black box that run everything.
Right. And the algorithms are important. What's that?
That's how I imagine it.
That's how you imagine little gremlins on a pinwheel kind of thing. It's important, right? So consistency is important on so many levels. It creates the right habits for us, which lead to company culture. It's consistency when it comes to brand, and that's how we remember things is through repetition. The consistency leads to repetition, and ultimately that's all a brand is a kind of repeated message. So if you don't have a consistency, you could be repetitive, I suppose, but just inconsistent, and you won't have the rhythm of the marketing benefit of that cumulative result where people are looking forward to it or at least expecting it, which is good because sometimes they will ignore an email or a post from like yesterday, or if it was like on Friday, it's like, oh, well, I know David will post another thing on Friday. So while not a good thing that they just ignored you, if it was like, oh, I have no idea when he's going to post, there's a less of a chance of them going back to it, because unless there's something spectacular or special, they're just going to ignore it. It's that cumulative where we keep seeing the same person over and over again. Curiosity builds. Familiarity breeds trust, and there's that saying in sales and marketing that we do business with those we know, like, and trust. Yeah. So likability is comes from familiarity, and we know the phrase that familiarity breeds trust. So, and that leads from consistency. So it's like that's like the number one thing really that we provide for our clients, and that we're always looking to achieve ourselves. I mean, it's like any other habit in our lives or at least positive habits. The bad ones are easy to stay consistent with. It's the good habits that take discipline and accountability and infrastructure. And it's all those stuff that we provide for our clients to see those results. But it's developing those good habits at the end of the day. Either they're posting content, we're posting on their behalf, or they're on LinkedIn and they're engaging with their VIP inner circles. It's one way or another is developing those positive marketing habits.
Yeah. And so most of the time on the channel, we're talking about buying and selling businesses.
Sure.
And one of the biggest things that people can do to generate value in a business that they intend to put on the market and they want to sell is these demonstrable systems that are documented. Sure. So for those of you out there who have any business, not just a professional consulting or a service firm, if you have an actual strategy about how you're going to build your referrals and your repeat referability and your content marketing, you want to have it documented. This is what we do every week, and this is how we do it. And we make a video or we make a blog post, and then we put it on these social medias, so that when a buyer comes along and they ask you, how do you get clients, you can actually show it to them. You say, this is the process we follow on a weekly basis in order to create more, word of mouth feedback, etc. And when you don't see that, if you're a buyer, when you don't see that kind of thing in a business, I would argue it's probably an opportunity, because a buyer could get in and very quickly gather some of those lists through customer information that would be stored in that business and start to create that kind of system. I once knew a cabinet maker, and he was complaining about how he was in a slow time of year. He was doing kitchen cabinets and things like this. And it was suggested to him, why don't you just call all your customers from the past year and say you're doing a follow-up warranty call? Do they have any squeaks or rattles or things that aren't quite right? Because you have time to go and fix them. And in doing so, he went and visited 20 or 30 people that he had helped in the prior year. And then all of a sudden, the phone was ringing, because he became top of mind again to those people who started talking about their kitchen cupboards again with other people who became clients. So it's reminding people, and I get, 3 or 4 times a year, I get a letter from my real estate agent who helped me buy this house. Happens, you get it all the time, and it's important for a lot of people. If people need some help though, and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way that people can reach you, Vic?
I would say email is probably the best. Vik, V-I-K, at phoneblogger.net, PHONEBLOGGER.net, also the web address. So Vik at phoneblogger.net is probably the easiest way. I'm very easily found on LinkedIn. I'm very active there, so you can just look up my full name, which will be in the show notes. It's very easy. /Vikram Rajan is for LinkedIn. Between the two, we'll definitely connect.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Vic. It was good to meet you. Have a great day.
Thanks, David. Yeah, this was fun. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.